so you can be smarter at the water cooler. Host Elliot Shore Parks explains the biggest story from multiple vantage points and the ripple effects it has throughout the NFL. Plus, the best football show delivers the highlights from all of Odyssey's football podcasts. So you've got all the news and insight from across the league. Follow in the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. And speaking of our people, how about this guy, Sean Salisbury? Hey, man, you okay? There's a lot going on in Houston. Right, tomorrow night, it's the Philly-Houston special with two different sports going head-to-head. And I know, I'm getting some real good social media Astros energy from you on a nightly basis.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to bring me on here to talk about how brilliant I was ahead of the insiders to tell you McCaffrey was getting traded to the 49ers, which we'll get to, I'm sure.
My man,
a month ago.
You brought that. No, I'm going to go back before that. When you and I did our first show together, you brought it up. I'm absolutely going to give you credit for that.
I'm only kidding you. I've got every now and again, when you say something, you get something right once out of every 1,000 times, and that's me. But in truth, this is going to be a hell of a series. Last night wasn't good, and you know how it goes when in a 7-game series you lose one, and oh my gosh, it's over. Then you win game 2, you get hammered in game 3. It's oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Dusty's not good. Fans go crazy. It's a 7-game series. And the Astros win tonight, and you're right back to having home field advantage. But the Phillies are nasty in a good way. I mean, they're battle-tested. They've had to stay on edge the entire time. But I got a lot of energy for the Astros because I know that 106 wins is hard to come by. But Verlander and McCullers, neither one of them pitched well in their starts, and the Phillies got to them, and you saw the difference. More bullpen work would probably be nice for the Astros. But if your first 4 don't hit, you're in trouble. And you saw last night, Harper and Schwarber can wreck games. So the Astros, I don't think you want to be down 3-1 looking at the Eagles coming to town and boat racing the Texans by about 50 on Thursday and having a 3-1 lead with Wheeler going in game 5. Yeah, not good. And that'd be a hell of a celebration for the Philadelphia City. So we're trying to prevent that.
Dusty stayed with McCullers too long. I'm sure he's getting ripped on Houston sports radio.
We still got scabs here in the Bay Area over stuff like this, Sean.
Absolutely. But if that ground ball that somebody missed, that was Dusty's fault too. And McCullers throwing a cement mixer to doggone Bryce Harper, that's on Dusty. Yes, I think most of us realize when you got Garcia and Urquidy both starters and can go long, as you saw Garcia do against Seattle, that a lot of us felt that going to inning 3, McCullers just didn't have it, whether it's the tipping of pitches or he just wasn't throwing the ball in his slider, and which he throws. And he doesn't throw fat guys. He threw 18% fastballs last night. He does not trust his command on a fastball, and they sat back and hammered him. So, yes, Dusty, who is, you guys know this, is loyal at times to a fault. He's one of my favorite people. I've known him for 30 years. I'm rooting for him specifically and Mattress Mac for $75 million reasons to win a World Series. But Dusty is a hell of a manager, Hall of Fame manager. This would be a nice cap to a hell of a run this year. I hope he gets it. But you got to manage that part of it better. That's been the one thing that's hampered him in his career. But he doesn't strike out and he doesn't throw up curveballs. So his decisions will be tonight. You would see a quicker hook, but I expect a better performance out of Javier.
He is America's #1 baseball analyst, Sean Salisbury, right here on 95. So if you don't mind, Sean, we'd love to ask you some football questions too. Is that all right?
Please.
Okay,
please.
Good. So, let's get into McCaffrey. This changes the 49ers rest of the season. How?
Well, you saw, even without Debo, guys, and one of my biggest thoughts going into this was exactly how, as a defensive coordinator, you have to defend the 49ers with McCaffrey. Now you also add McCaffrey to Debo, and when Kittle's on the field and Ayuk, and the way they're going, and I'm assuming they're eventually going to get healthy. Now you've added a dimension that even if you don't use one or the other on a continuous basis, meaning attempts to them in the passing game, touches, targets, whatever we want to call it, that simply by yourself as a defensive coordinator, I know how these guys think, trust me. You'll run a reverse in a game, and for 2 hours on a practice field and during the week, a coordinator that could be 8 weeks away, his head will explode trying to figure out how you can defend one play. Well, Kyle now has got everything. You've got a quarterback who was efficient last week and sometimes spectacular. Knowing that defensive coordinators are going to have to defend all this. You can't play man coverage or double all of them. So just the simple deployment of those guys gives Kyle, who we know loves to move formations and personnel groupings, and McCaffrey's productive too. He's not exactly a hack as a player. He's a phenomenal player. Now you get them all. You may get production with less touches from Debo and still get the same production. It can be miserable on coordinators to have to just defend it in their game plan, and now when you actually have to defend it in the game, tough. As long as they do this, it makes Jimmy better. They're more multiple. It makes the offensive line better, and it'll help them keep Jimmy upright, and play action in quick game becomes even bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it creates more space on the field for everybody else. Hey, let me ask you, of the contenders, Philly got Robert Quinn, who's going to help them off the edge, and I thought KC getting Kadarius Toney very interesting because he's an electric player now in a better environment. More of a team-friendly environment, I think. I think he could take off. And then you got Nyheim Hines going to Buffalo, and the Niners get McCaffrey. Of the contending teams, the Super Bowl contenders, who got the biggest push, do you think, at the trade deadline from the player they got?
I actually think a lot of these trades benefited some of these championship-caliber teams, and even two more that may not look like it yet. Look what the Dolphins do when Tua's in the game. Speaking of wins against replacement, that overused stat in baseball, look what he does when he plays. Adding Bradley Chubb could be huge for them, another wrecker on defense. And then Baltimore. Guys, Roquan Smith is a friggin' monster, and you added that. You're getting healthy, and you get Lamar Jackson another level. I mean, they could probably use another game-breaking wide receiver, but I like that move. But of the three, if Andy Reid and Mahomes can't turn Toney into a big play guy, I'm not sure who can, right, guys? I mean, you're going to get a chance to spread the field, get him the ball quick in space with his speed. Of the other two, you mentioned Hines this is a huge get for the depth of the Buffalo running game. It just is, because I actually thought, I'm sure they tried to go in on Kamara and a couple others, because the one element, I don't want Josh Allen to have to rush for 90 yards a game to keep me as the number one threat in the league, right? Although he has that ability, I'd like to mix it. I think that's a good get. And who'd I leave out? I left one more out that you had mentioned.
McCaffrey.
Oh, well, the McCaffrey thing's obvious, yeah. I would think this, guys, for impact, I would think it would go on this level of just those three. I would think the depth in Buffalo, because you just added another weapon. Toney's speed matters, but to me it's still McCaffrey, guys. You needed another game-breaking home run hitter. I think when we get to January, that maybe Baltimore's will be hanging around too, but I think when we get to January, we'll sit here and say the biggest addition for a team in 2022 to elevate them and the quarterback and the offense, because they need to score in a division right now that's not exactly as good as we thought it would be. I think that McCaffrey's addition, because of the pass and run game and in space, is going to be the one that everybody says was better.
Yeah, you know what's fascinating with that comment and extending it to the comparison that people inevitably are going to do with the Miami Dolphins, because it's Mike McDaniel. We're looking at two teams here that feel like, okay, they're an extension of one another. It's kind of the same offense. And Brian Baldinger was on our station last week, Sean, and was talking about how he thought the 49ers needed more speed. And then here we get McCaffrey. Is that a fair comp? Are the Miami Dolphins essentially the 49ers with more speed? And is that giving the 49ers a little bit of a blueprint of what they need to strive to be offensively to be better?
Yeah, look at the upgrade. And the thing about it is both quarterbacks are pretty accurate. You saw Jimmy's accuracy with McCaffrey last week. What, he complete like 80% of his
21
passes.
to 25, yeah.
And guys, look what Tua's been doing every week when he plays. The ball, they're both physically, is it fair for me to say, measurably or physically limited on certain things that they do, deep balls down the field? Listen, Allen can throw late. Mahomes can throw late. Jimmy Garoppolo and Tua cannot throw late. They've got to throw two windows on time and trust throwing to grass. So, yeah, I think you see what Mike's trying to do in Miami. They're trying to disrupt you on defense, run the ball effectively and control it, and put their quarterback in position to get the ball out to teams and speed and space. You saw what Mike's doing with jet sweep and getting the ball on the edge as quick as possible to Tyreek Hill. Yes, and Waddle. So there is no question. And it's, guys, it's only natural that the guys that are part of your, coaching tree that have been around it do what they do. And so by getting Chubb, you've added a disruptor, and with the way that they approach it, and now 49ers taking a piece away from Miami, saying, how is it difficult? One thing we can't teach, which is an old, obviously talked about all the time, is speed. And you see what it's done in pass for Kansas City. Teams with speed in the open field destroy teams when you got a quarterback that gets them the ball in space. You don't have to throw it 80 yards in the air or 60 yards in the air to get big plays. Most of your big plays come by catch and run after the catch. McCaffrey adds that element, not only from the receiver position, but from the backfield.
You know, if you want to improve a football team, they say the fastest way, and everybody's got a different theory. Some people say O-line, some people say D-line. Old scout one time told me it's if you change the guys who touch the football, then you can, that's the fastest way to change a team. I bring this up because look at Minnesota. They got Cousins is playing well. They just had TJ Hawkinson. They got Dalvin Cook. They've got Justin Jefferson. They got Adam Thielen. The people who handle the football in Minnesota are really, really good. Are we sleeping on the Vikings? Because it seems like you talk Super Bowl contenders, it's a long discussion before their name ever comes up.
Not in my mind, and I'll tell you why. And you are 100% correct. And I'm going to tell you something that the main guy at Pro Football, Steve Palazzolo, told me about, from Pro Football Focus, told me about what you're bringing up here quickly in a second. But I'm not. I actually think right now that the Vikings may very well be the second best team in the NFC. I do. I know it's Philadelphia. And I know that Philadelphia, I believe, beat the Vikings like in week 2 of the season. But the Cowboys are rising. I know the 49ers. But I'm just telling you, the way you mentioned all those weapons, and look what Jefferson's done, that one receiver, to expand what Kirk Cousins, the feeling he gets. It looks to me, now we're always going to ask this as we push towards January. Will Cousins make the throw that we even mentioned with Jimmy? Will he make the throw under duress? We saw one against New Orleans about 3 years ago to Adam Thielen down the middle of the field on a seam. But the question is, in prime time, his record against plus 500 teams in the past, guys, is putrid. It's like a winning percentage of like 300. So it's not good. But 30% of your wins plus 500. He's playing different this year. Kevin O'Connell's got to be considered coach of the year. Look at the difference in the way they attack. They're winning close games, they're starting fast, and they're also playing well late. So I would agree with you. If you're sleeping on the Vikings, it's a mistake. They're clearly the best team in the division, and if Cousins keeps playing like this, he's always been a numbers guy. Can he expand it to a clutch guy? If he does, they've got personnel, and they just added, like you said, the tight end. And real quick with Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, I asked him, the most important positions in building a team are getting well quick. Normally it's edge rusher, that left tackle. We hear that about. Of course it starts with quarterback. You know what he said the second most important position now in the league is? Wide receiver. Because we're in such a passing league, you've got to have Jamar Chase, Hill, Stephon Diggs. You see what Jefferson's doing. That guy who can wreck a game with speed, and if you got more than one, then God bless you. And like Cincinnati getting to the Super Bowl last year, I would agree. That position, which was 4th or 5th, you got a bunch of good guys. You need the home run hitter, and the Vikings have them.
Okay, so while you're talking about the Vikings and where they sit in the NFC, Sean, how many NFC teams would you name before you get to the 49ers?
Are we talking about today?
Yep.
As we sit right now. Eagles, Vikings, Cowboys, and for me, the next one is the 49ers.
Okay. That's it. And then I got like I said, Seahawks are really good. Pete could be considered coach of the year. Pete Carroll could. But if you told me that my life was on the line, I had to bet it. Let's hope that never happens. Or I had a grand in front of me. I'd bet the 49ers with the addition of McCaffrey and a defense that I think is still pretty damn good. The Giants and the Seahawks are hovering, and they're overachieving. Atlanta, no. Tampa, no. Green Bay, no. Rams, no. To me, it's the 49ers, but I would put the Vikings and Cowboys ahead of them today. We'll see if that changes in the next month.
Niners are waiting for a lot of guys to come back. Debo,
yep.
Juice,
Eli
Jennings,
Yep.
Armstead, Kinlaw, Verrett.
That's the two biggest. Armstead, Kinlaw are a monster inside. They got to get that fixed.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Al-Shaair is another guy. If they don't get Kinlaw back and Armstead's got the plantar fasciitis, Can they win with a Ridgeway Givens interior tandem? They're also going with a 4D end alignment with your SC brother Drake Jackson playing incredible ball as a defensive end, standing up at the defensive tackle spot.
Yeah, we're kind of feel like it's a little light in the ass, right? And sometimes look at the Rams last year.
But he's getting it done.
Yeah, he sure is. There is no question about it. I couldn't be more proud. But you think about the Rams last year, ultimate finesse team, right, on offense. Ultimate finesse team. They got 1 ounce of physicality, especially when Whitworth left. Their most physical player on offense is now broadcasting. But on defense, what happened in the Super Bowl? You saw Von Miller, but you saw the interior push. Quarterbacks who aren't scramblers, east and west, guys who escape, can't stand that they cannot stand people at their legs inside that are pocket people. So when you face those kind of guys, which is usually our Super Bowl winner, a guy who can throw it from there and beat you on time and then extend the play. I think they can, but that puts a lot of onus on linebackers and secondary help and winning on first down. But guys, I'm just telling you, get later in the season, that physicality and that depth interior push, when you get up against a team that's going to run it and wear you out and be nasty play action, it could be a problem. The fortunate thing is in the NFC, I don't think the NFC is very good. So, yeah, if you can win on first down and force teams to get out of that situation, but physicality gets the longer the season goes, I'm a big believer defensively in your front seven, you got to be more physical. They're doing a hell of a job now, but it's going to be a test. I thought that maybe they'd look during the trade deadline to do something, but they're overachieving at it now, which is a good sign.
My man, it is always good to have you on the show. Thank you so much, and don't you worry one little bit. The Astros will win the baseball game tonight. That's a done deal.
I like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let's get it back home because that's a nasty atmosphere. So
Man.
Appreciate it. Should be fun, guys. I love being on with you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, there you go. Sean Salisbury on 95.7 The Game.